Hi, I'm Paula, and this is Brad,
Hi.
and we wanted to talk to you a little bit more today about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And as I mentioned before, that Brad and I are both certified master practitioners of NLP, and I'm going to let Brad break down all three of those words to explain to you exactly what it means.
Sure. So neural has to do with our neurology, how our linguistics, neuro-linguistic programming, how the linguistics, the language we use, the language we receive, how that affects our neurology to make us feel happy, sad, angry, whatever it might be. And then these are programs or patterns that we are running in our mind. So neuro-linguistic programming is a means of recognizing how people encode these language patterns in their mind, how it affects their neurology, how to alter that by decoding this and then repatterning this for the person in a way which is congruent with their ecology. This is suitable to their life. In other words, it's not something that I'm saying, I think you should do this or I think you should do that. This comes from the client. It's a means of higher communication is what it really is. And it's a means of learning, and that bit of it is inherently hypnotic. Whenever we learn something, we're learning through the unconscious mind, and then it drip feeds it to our conscious mind, and that process is actually a hypnotic process. And a lot of people, even in the field, don't recognize that's what's going on. So it is inherently hypnotic in nature, but it can be done just simply as two people are sitting having a conversation over a coffee. Once you learn how to have command over your language and direct your language toward the other person's desires and better outcomes.
So obviously the more sophisticated use and in-depth use of NLP is very effective in therapy.
Absolutely.
It's used hand in hand with the hypnotherapy in order to help clients achieve whatever the goals are that they're looking for. But it's also can be used in its simplest forms in everyday life with our children, the way parents speak to our children, the way that
Paul is wrangling a cat at the moment.
Our bosses speak to employees effectively. It's about basically using our language and our words in a more effective way and being able to communicate well. Which communication is obviously a huge part of our lives. And if you're going to communicate with people, which you are every day, your children, your colleagues, your friends, so why not do it effectively?
Right. So this is mastering communication is what it really comes down to, again, which is hypnotic. And there are very specific ways of calibrating on how a person is processing. So as an example, I've said in past videos that we process with what we see, what we hear, what we feel. So visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And if you have a son or a daughter or a friend who is speaking in one language, visual, and you're speaking in another language, audio, you may be mixing messages. It's like a dialect or speaking two different languages. If you recognize someone else is speaking visually, they'll use certain language predicates. They'll be saying things like, don't you see it my way? How come you can't see it my way? This seems so enlightening to me. And they'll be using visual cues in their language. And you'll be saying, I just don't hear what it is you're saying to me. That doesn't resonate with me. And you'll be using predicates which are audio based. So, and there are more than this. I'm just using the audio and the visual as an example. So when you learn that someone is speaking visually and you're auditory, you then can learn to translate your language and speak in the video, in the visual also, so that they can better understand you. And you can then translate this back to yourself in a way which is meaningful. So you have a deeper, better understanding of how to get on with your teenage son or daughter, as an example, because they will definitely be processing in these ways. Visual people, for example, might picture hundreds and hundreds of pictures very, very quickly, whereas an audio person has to process in a certain order, like you're processing music or the alphabet or counting, some such thing. So these things really make a difference in how we process our language and how we process the world around us.
Because they have a direct impact and effect on the way that we feel. They have a direct impact on our emotions. They have a direct impact on the people that we are speaking to.
That's the neural bit. That's exactly right.
Also, so we mentioned about the way we speak to our kids, the way we speak to our friends, our colleagues, our bosses, our employees, but more importantly, it's how we speak to ourselves, because we all use self-talk. We all speak to ourselves. Doesn't mean, some crazy person talking to themselves. We all have an inner dialogue. We all think and
Yep.
talk to ourselves all the time.
Some of us use it more than others. Some might do the visual more, so that's their primary system. An audio person might do that as their primary mode. So these language patterns that we use, these ways of encoding thoughts in our mind, they do not simply describe our world out there or the world in here, the map that we have of the world out there. They define it. They say, this is how I'm perceiving my world out there internally. I'm making maps of the external world, and I'm processing them in mind as if it is the same as the outside world, which it's not. But it gives us an insight as to how the person is thinking.
Right. So we're going to keep coming at you with little tips and techniques to enlighten you about how to successfully and effectively use language to get the outcomes that you want in life, whether that be to have your teenage son listen to you and understand you, or to be successful in whatever goals that
Right.
you have. But there are different little tips and secrets and ways of using our language effectively.
I just wanted to say that because I'm using this word encoding, because we encode these patterns, I'm hoping that the people listening to this will recognize there is structure, deep structure to this. And when you understand that there is a structure, it's not just hit and miss. You can go specifically at a problem and know how a person is creating a problem or a success, a model of success in their mind. And then you can model that and take on their model of success, or understand how that person is faltering when they're having difficulty. So it's highly structured. It's a means of encoding or patterning or reprogramming, as they say. And so that's what the word nerves, nervous system, linguistic, language, programming is all about.
Right. And who doesn't want to be successful?
Yeah, and who doesn't want to communicate better?
That's right.